Dolphins football on the Ourlads Football Network. This is the Ourlads Football channel. And for the very first time, we are going to be interviewing our next guest who covers the Miami Dolphins. His name is Jason Sarney, and you can catch Jason's work in several different places. Dolphinstalk.com. You can check that out, as well as Dolphins Wire. You can also check out YouTube. You've got Krantz's Corner. You've got Dolphins Talk. I'm going to put links in the description area for all of this content, so you can check Jason out there. And here on our Ourlads Football channel, Jason, we want to first get you started off with this interview by talking about the top draft needs for the Miami Dolphins. So first off, thanks for doing this.
So if we're going to work backwards, I think truly, and I might be in a little bit of a minority in the fan base in this, I think a wide receiver is, believe it or not, of need. You know, you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but that is it in terms of where they look in terms of targets per game. Outside of those two, it is a barren wasteland. I pulled some numbers, and those two combined, 275 targets last year. Everybody else who received at least one target, one less, 274. So you could see how important those guys are. And when either of them were either out or missed a game or two, it was evident. Now with Tyreek Hill having, you know, he's not a rookie anymore. He's not a young man. He's got a number of years under his belt. I think the over-under is 1.5 on years left in Miami and or in the NFL. Jalen Waddle's a guy you're going to want to extend. So whether it's picking up a fifth-year option and then extending him or just extending him, he's going to need a running mate soon. In a wide receiver-rich class, should the cookie crumble a certain way, and let's say Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU is there, he could be a perfect guy to contribute a little bit here, a little bit there as a rookie or as a sophomore in the NFL, and then slide right into 1A to Jalen Waddle's 1. So wide receiver, not necessarily need, but Chris Grier overpays and pays for a couple of different premium positions. Wide receiver, one of them. Waddle, first-round pick. Tyreek Hill, cost a first-round pick, and a boatload of others.
All right, that's excellent. So let's go ahead and check out what you believe is going to be draft need number 2 for Miami.
I was doing my best to think what 2 and 1 would be while I was talking 3, and I'm still trying to buy myself a tad of time. But with that said, number 2 is going to be depth on the offensive line. But I put an asterisk to that, and we'll get to that, because the Dolphins do have an offensive line that, as a unit, performed very well via coaching and patchwork rotation. I think they had around 8 or 9 different fives throughout the course of the year, which is remarkable in and of itself that they weren't a Swiss cheese line. They actually kept to an upright, which is both parts of them working well as a unit, and the offensive scheme into it. It's 1-2 throw, 1-2 throw. So he's getting the ball out remarkably quick no matter what. The rushing component to it was a little less than physical, bullying up front. They're more of a run zone blocking scheme, so it's more like kind of finesse, especially with their speed guys. But what they do really need is depth, because they're really on the interior. They lost Robert Hunt to Carolina, and they were never going to pay that amount of money. Because like I said, Grier pays premium for a couple of positions. He will let others just go. In this case, he'll welcome the third-round compensation, but they need to replace that. So I'm hoping in round 2, if they don't do this in round 1, because there's 1 or 2 guys I would jump up and grab on the offensive line in round 1. But if we're looking at round 2, I'm looking at a guy like maybe a Zach Frazier who can go inside and in maybe the center role. Christian Hayes from UConn. There's a number of guys like that you can kind of plug and play. But then, of course, you have to look at maybe if there's a tackle that you might need out there, because Teron Armstead is an over-under of 7.5, 8 games. I love Teron Armstead when he's on the field, but when he's off the field, Dolphins are different. I think he's got 1 year left, so you might need a guy, and I'll name a guy who I'm going to think of. You might need a guy who can maybe sub in for him when he's out and maybe be the successor. But at the same time, if you do pick him in the first round, now I'm jumping to first round, a guy like Graham Barton played great left tackle at Duke, but he also has the ability to play in the interior. So a lot of options for the Dolphins, but there's certainly need because Connor Williams is an unrestricted free agent who played great center prior to injury against the Tennessee Titans, went down with a knee injury. There might not be any football left in him, rumor has it. So I hope he's well. I hope he does play football, but I do not think it's going to be for the Miami Dolphins, if anyone, next year. So they have a number of needs. They got to fill up on the offensive line, but plenty of depth back in terms of their swings and their depth interiors.
It makes complete sense to me. I was going over that as well, and it definitely looked like there was going to be 1, 2, maybe even 3 offensive linemen you could see added to the team. We'll talk more in depth about that as we continue our interview on the Prime Sports Network YouTube channel. Okay, let's wrap it up with what you believe could be Miami Dolphins' number 1 draft need.
Sacks on the edge. They need that pressure on the quarterback. What Grit's career does, and alluded to earlier, he'll pay for what is this type of a league. It is a passing league. So you got to get to the quarterback to stop the pass and stop the quarterback. And I've mentioned the wide receiver is obviously another premium position, but they need a presence to replace what they've lost. They lost Andrew Van Ginkel, who was more of like a substitute, but could be a starter, which he will be probably in Minnesota. Of course, they had the injuries to Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, and they lost the interior sack presence of Christian Wilkins. Now, that's probably around 25 to 30 healthy, if included Phillips and Chubb if they finish the year. That's a lot of sacks they have to make up. They broke a franchise record last year with 56 total. So they need to find someone to fill the void of both Chubb and Phillips. And then you're probably going to get Phillips back before Chubb. And then once those two are back, you got that rookie in rotation because you're probably not going to be able to ride the next 3-4 years with both Chubb and Phillips. So you might need a guy to groom and be one of the bookends for whomever they keep in the long haul.